One of the things that I really love about shipping container homes is the way that they can be scaled to meet the needs of those who are living within them. That is exactly the case with this small container home, which has been constructed from 4 shipping containers and designed to house 10 people. G'day Simon!
Hi Bryce, how you going?
Good mate, great to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
And amazing to see your beautiful home. What a spectacular place.
Thank you, great to have you here.
So, first of all, why shipping containers?
It wasn't actually my idea to use shipping containers, it was our architect Matt Elkan's idea. Initially I wasn't too certain that was going to be the best approach for us. I thought it might have been a bit cliched and it was a bit of a trend at the time. But he sold me on the idea by just being honest. He said, look, if you're going to use shipping containers, you need to use them wisely, because really all they are is just a big metal box. But there's also some limitations, and that is they're not insulated, so they're cold in winter and hot in summer. They're not designed to be lived in, and they have fixed dimensions. So we had to really think about how we're going to use the containers.
So obviously one of the big limitations when we are talking about a shipping container is the thermal performance, which you touched on. So how did you work around that when it came to insulating the home?
We decided to actually insulate the home externally, so wrap the insulation externally in the building. So there's 2 advantages of doing that. The first is we could actually increase the amount of bulk in the insulation externally, so we could use more insulation to, one, improve that thermal performance and get a higher R value. And the other reason is because if we were to insulate internally, we're already going to further constrain an already constrained space. So by insulating externally, we therefore have a really good solution for containers.
Before we go inside, I want to talk about the exterior because you've done a very beautiful job in cladding this home, and I really like the aesthetic that you've created where some parts the containers are masked and in other areas they're left exposed and are completely celebrated. Can you talk to me about that?
We wanted to express the containers externally, so we wanted to show that they were actually built with containers. So that's why we left the container doors on the building, and that's why this part of the building here has been left exposed. The use of corrugated steel was, I suppose, to make sure we could cover those containers in a way that had a durable, lasting outcome. So that's why I've used this. It's a fairly light material and it's all been screwed down, so we've really limited the amount of glues in this house.
And what about use of renewable energy technology in the home? Is this grid connected or are you on solar?
So fortunately for us, we use very small amounts of energy to power this home. So the reason why that is because we've incorporated the solar passive design, so it all faces north. You have that solar gain in winter, so it warms in winter. We don't have direct sunlight hitting windows because we have large eaves. So it really does work quite well. And at this stage, we haven't gone to the renewable energy. We're still looking at solutions in terms of renewable energy generation. So we've really tried to improve the energy efficiency of the building to really achieve strong, sustainable outcomes.
And of course, when we're talking about sustainability, one of the things that does come down to in modern construction is size, right? Now, this is not a tiny house by any means, but it is a small house and it's designed to house a good number of individuals. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this house is around 95 square metres and that includes the guest studio and it also includes this main building. So this main building itself is about 80 square metres in size and it can comfortably accommodate 10 people. So that's quite, I think, an achievement to be able to fit 10 people in a fairly small footprint comfortably.
The outside of the house looks really great. I love the balance between the containers and the cladding, and I am really excited to see how you've tackled it on the inside. Can we check it out?
Come on in.
Thank you.
So we really wanted to take advantage of the views. So as you walk through down this corridor, you can see through the glass window. So you're actually getting that view past the wall and into the vegetation before us. Then we've also got these cutouts in this room so that you've got this broadening of the view as you're looking down the block. So you can really get that sense of space by actually looking through glass rather than being confronted by a block wall.
You certainly do, and being able to look right out amongst those trees is really quite beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. So again, it's about that connection that we wanted with the natural environment. So you can actually see the natural environment, you can see it change over the seasons, and it really gives that strong sense of interest and a sense of well-being by actually being able to feel connected with your natural environment, which I think we so dearly miss in our urban areas.
Now, so often in container homes, the very first thing that people do is try to cover them up. But I love the way that you have really celebrated their use in this house with all of these exposed container walls.
Yeah, so really what we wanted to do here is we wanted to express the containers internally so you could actually see what the home was built out of. We had this kind of, I suppose, minimalist aesthetic because we wanted to make sure that we use materials in an honest way and that we express them in that honest way so that you could see precisely what it was built out of. I think it's still built very beautifully, but I don't think having a fairly industrial aesthetic means it has to be cold and uninviting. I think we can design homes in a way where we use interesting materials and they can still be quite welcoming.
And the layout is very interesting to me. Can you talk to me about how this was all done?
In terms of solving the solution of how to actually integrate the containers into this building, what we had to think about is what spaces work well in containers and how we can best utilise those spaces. So when you look at the floor plan here, we have what is in effect an L shape. So the two outside edges of the L form the bedrooms, the kitchen, the bathroom and the storage room. And then we've had to build additional structure to link those containers. So we've got breezeways or corridors linking the containers. And then we have the larger living dining space, which actually is situated outside the container. And then we have a roof that just spans the top of all those living spaces, a very simple roof. I think what may not be obvious is the clever use of space in this building. So where I'm standing right now is where the kids have their little breakout space. So what that does is it allows them to be separate from the main living area, but still very much connected.
And how many containers went into the construction of this home?
We've used 3 20-foot shipping containers and 1 40-foot shipping container. One of the 20-foot shipping containers is used for the guest pod, and the remaining 3 containers are used here in the main house.
And now talk to me about the spectacular dining and living space, because it is really nice how this has been done.
Yeah, so like we were saying before, we've taken advantage of the slope of the land, so this house steps down. So what we've got here is this increased ceiling height, which gives a sense of volume. So this is the largest single room in the house. And like I said, it's about that oversized living space to encourage people to come in here and interact and be connected with one another rather than spending times alone in your bedroom and other spaces. So it really is about relationships. It's about us coming down here, enjoying these spaces together and being able to interact. So we really wanted to escape the trappings of everyday life and get away from the materialistic ways of living and get away from those distractions that I think have a tendency to corrode our attention from one another. And it really is about us having the opportunity to reconnect here. And it's so important, I think, in today's world and the way we're living, that with the fragmentation of our communities, with a lack of connection with our natural world, that we start thinking about how we can re-establish these connections. And I think housing can play a key role in that. And I honestly believe that good design can change the way we live.
And especially in here, the use of all of the timber windows and doors is just lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a real luxury item here that we incorporated. So these are recycled hardwood timber doors and windows from a company that's carbon positive, which means they export more renewable energy back to the grid than they actually use in making the doors and windows themselves. What's also important to highlight here is how you can actually reduce cost by building cost-effective livable space. So the covered deck areas, we have 40 square metres of covered decking, which means you can spill out onto the deck in all types of weather. So when it's raining, when it's really warm outside, and that's a really cost-effective way of building additional space into the home.
Really nice to see you've got the hooks there as well. Is that for a hammock?
It is, and that's a lovely relaxing space for my wife. So she loves to spend time in there reading her books and enjoying that space.
Fair enough too. I don't think any house is quite complete until there's a hammock.
My wife would totally agree with you.
And now talk to me about what you've done here in the kitchen, because it is so cool how it's almost been entirely framed by this container.
So the kitchen is actually quite oversized. We like spending time in the kitchen and cooking and interacting with the kids, and that actually forms part of the living space as well. So again, we've got that interaction. It's made out of form ply, which is a fairly inexpensive building material. We tried again to really reduce the amount of material in our kitchen. So here you'll see a lot of open shelving. That was done on purpose. There's the pantry, which has a cupboard door, and there's only 4 simple drawers. So it's really about trying to reduce the amount of materials in this building and keeping that minimal design aesthetic.
Downside to doing that though, is it does mean you have to keep your shelves tidy.
It does. So as you can see here, we've spent a bit of time cleaning up for this program.
Well, I really like the way that you've tackled the communal areas in the house, and I'm very interested to see what you've done in the rest of the containers. Can we check those out?
Let's have a look. So in here we've got the kids' room.
This is a very tidy kids' room.
We like to keep things clean here, we're minimalists.
Fair enough too. So one of the questions that I have is, you've got 2 kids, but this area is designed to obviously sleep 4 children, and then you've got another guest bedroom, and then you've got the guest pod outside as well. Why have you designed this house to accommodate so many people?
Because I like to sleep in different bedrooms, personally. No, it's for the extended family. So we love to entertain and have other people around, and we love to have the extended family here. So we've got the cousins that can sleep in this bed. The guest pod was actually the in-laws guest pod.
Fantastic. And then next door to us here we have the bathroom.
That's right. Yeah, so here's the bathroom. This room is really about giving a sense that you're in a campsite, so in a camping site bathroom, because we wanted, again, that connection with the outdoors. And I think using this mini rib, which is a type of colorbond steel, really helps, I suppose, give that feeling that you actually are showing outside, and also having the window open maybe helps with that as well. One of the things we really tried to do is to limit the use of chrome in this house, because it's an energy intensive toxic process. So here we've just used everyday garden taps, and we've also used copper pipes to form the tapware. Here we've just got simple bolts and timber just to hang your towels on, and really trying to keep things simple and paring them back.
And so what do we have down the other end there?
Well, now we have the master bedroom. So this is our palatial master bedroom. That's a joke. It isn't a particularly generous bedroom by typical standards. But again, we've tried to make best use of the views. So we've got a very large window at the foot of the bed, which again takes advantage of that beautiful vegetation at the end of the block. We've also tried, again, to keep a minimalist aesthetic and to only include what's simple and necessary. So here we have just a very simple 3 drawers. And again, we've got this copper piping forming the coat hangers here for our wardrobe space. So very simple, and they're just as effective as any other approach is.
Absolutely. Again, it does just mean you have to be a little bit tidier.
That's right, you do.
Now I'm really interested to see what you've done with the 20-foot container and the guest pod. Can we check that out?
Yep, we'll go see the granny flat right now.
Let's do it. I really like what you've done out here as well with the water tank and the outdoor shower. That's a nice touch.
Oh yeah, that's one of the most luxurious items we have here, to have a warm outdoor shower after being to the beach, being outside is fantastic.
Nothing like it.
So this is the guest pod, so we have people stay for extended stays, they can stay up here, but there's still that lovely connection with the main house. So we've got a decked area down here, we've got some informal deck seating up here. When you actually sit down on this informal seating here, you can still see the view down to the end of the block, so you've got that, still that lovely connection with that vegetation and the natural environment that surrounds us.
Absolutely, and it really is quite a lovely spot here. I really like how the property backs onto the forest. You're quite lucky with that, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean that's why we bought this block, because we could take advantage of that beautiful forest and vegetation down there, and it's a fantastic place to be up here too. Just these informal decked areas that just allows you to relax and unwind and just enjoy the simple life, really.
So important.
Yeah.
Should we check out inside the pod?
Let's go.
Again, this is lovely, and really nice honouring of the shipping containers in here again.
Yeah, so I think what instantly hits you when you walk into this guest pod is the amount of natural light filtering into this room. That's really helped by the fact that we actually decided to paint the container walls white.
Well, it really is just nice to lift the space and give it that little bit of extra light.
It is, and I think that's what it's done, and I think it's a beautiful amount of light here. As you can see, again, we've utilised the views to the forest and to the vegetation below, again with these large windows. You can see now that the container doors act as shutters. They can shade the windows and they can also lock it up when we're not here. And so the guest pod really consists of a bedroom and a bathroom.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier is that affordability was a big part of what you were aiming for within this building. Can you talk to me about the cost that was involved in realizing the structure?
So to build the house we've just gone through and this guest pod had a contract price of $319,000. The actual cost was $350,000. So that may seem like a lot to people, but we have built in the same way that 99% of people build. We had to contract a builder. We have to build to the Australian building standards and quality standards. It means you have to get this structure approved. And I think the fact that it also accommodates 10 people, and I think the energy efficiency and the quality of the finishing of this building, the clever architectural nature of this building, I think we've got pretty good value. And I think this, for us personally, has taught us that we can live in a simpler way with less, a more meaningful way of living, and a more rewarding way of living, in a way that, you know, encourages interaction with one another and our natural world.
Well, I couldn't agree more with that. I think this is a home that you should be really proud of. You've done a beautiful job in both the aesthetic and the function of the home, and you've created a wonderful space for you and your family. Thank you so much for sharing it with me, mate.
Cheers, thanks Bryce.
The design of this home is so clever. I love the sustainability story, the use of materials, and all of the thought that has gone into how to make the spaces work. This is a home with a relatively small footprint, but it's designed to comfortably accommodate 10 people, which I think is remarkable. And what I really like about it is the clever use of division, the way that the containers have been used to individually encapsulate spaces while then creating this wonderful communal living area in the center. Ultimately, what it comes down to is really thinking through design that works for human beings that live in the house, and that is exactly what Simon has done here.